Hey Virgo, all right, so I just sat down to do this reading for you, and honestly, the energy that came through is wild. Like, I had to shuffle 3 times because I kept getting this intense feeling that something major shifted in your reality recently. And when I finally laid out these cards, I literally sat back and was like, okay, universe, I see you being dramatic today. So the theme that kept coming up while I was shuffling was this whole idea of you being the villain in someone else's story right now. And I know that sounds intense, but hear me out because this is actually way more interesting than it sounds. You know how sometimes you make a decision that is absolutely right for you, but it completely disrupts someone else's narrative? That is exactly what is happening here. And the cards are showing me that whatever you did or whatever boundary you set, it literally dismantled an entire system that was not serving you. Before I get into the specific cards, I just want to say that if you have been feeling guilty about something recently, about walking away from something or someone, about choosing yourself, the cards are pretty clear that you made the right call. Like, the energy here is not about you being actually villainous. It is about you refusing to play a role that other people assign to you. And apparently, that decision is about to pay off in ways you have not even imagined yet. Okay, so let me tell you about the first card I pulled. And honestly, when this one came up, I actually laughed because it is so on the nose. I got the 7 of Swords, and this card is literally about strategy, about making moves that other people do not see coming, about being 10 steps ahead of everyone else. And in your situation, Virgo, this is telling me that you recently extracted yourself from a situation where you were being manipulated or where people were not being honest with you. The 7 of Swords traditionally gets a bad reputation because it is associated with deception or sneaking around. But I want you to understand the context here. This card showed up to validate that you saw through something. You caught onto a pattern, you noticed the inconsistencies, you picked up on the energy that was off. And instead of confronting it directly and getting into a whole drama, you just quietly removed yourself from the equation. You took your energy back. You took your resources back. You took your attention back. And here's what is fascinating about this card in your reading. The 7 of Swords is not just about leaving. It is about leaving with something valuable that belongs to you. In the traditional imagery, there is a figure carrying swords away from a camp, and those swords represent your power, your clarity, your truth. So what you did was you reclaimed parts of yourself that you had given away to people or situations that were never going to appreciate them. You took back your mental energy from people who were using it to fuel their own agendas. Now, the reason this makes you the villain in their story is because your departure probably exposed something. When you remove yourself from a dysfunctional system, that system can no longer function the way it did. And the people who benefited from that system, who benefited from you playing small, or from you being confused, or from you giving your energy away, those people are probably not happy right now. They might be painting you as the bad guy. They might be telling a story about how you betrayed them, or how you changed, or how you are not the person they thought you were. But here's the truth that the 7 of Swords wants you to understand. You did not change. You just stopped pretending. You stopped managing other people's emotions. You stopped sacrificing your own clarity for the sake of keeping the peace. And that act of reclaiming your own intelligence, your own awareness, your own strategic thinking, that is what disrupted everything. You essentially sat down their whole operation by refusing to participate in it anymore. The energy I am getting with this card is also showing me that you did this quietly. You did not make a big announcement. You did not send a long text message explaining yourself. You just started moving differently. You started protecting your energy differently. You started making decisions based on what you know to be true rather than what other people wanted you to believe. And that subtle shift, that quiet reclamation of your power, that is what changed everything. All right, so the second card I pulled is the Empress. And okay, this is where things get really interesting because this card is showing me what you are actually building now that you have removed yourself from that toxic dynamic. The Empress is all about creation, abundance, nurturing something into existence. And in your reading, this is telling me that you are entering a phase where you get to create something that is entirely yours. See, the Empress does not just represent abundance in a general sense. She represents the ability to bring something from the realm of potential into physical reality. She is the gardener, the artist, the creator, who understands that you have to prepare the soil, plant the seeds, and tend to things consistently if you want them to grow. And after that Seven of Swords energy, where you took yourself out of a draining situation, the Empress is showing up to say, okay, now you actually have the energy and the resources to build what you have been imagining. What I love about the Empress in this position is that she is telling me you are not starting from scratch. You are starting from a place of having reclaimed your power. You are starting with clarity about what you do not want, which means you have so much more precision about what you do want. And the Empress energy is very much about trusting your own creative process, trusting your own timing, trusting that when you invest in yourself and in your vision, the results will come. Now, here is where the whole doubling theme comes in. The Empress is associated with multiplication, with things growing beyond what you initially planted. So if you are putting energy into a project right now, into a new income stream, into a creative endeavor, into your own personal development, the Empress is indicating that you are going to see returns that are significantly larger than what you put in. This is not a one-to-one exchange. This is exponential growth. And I think the reason you are positioned for this kind of abundance right now is precisely because you walked away from that situation where your energy was being drained. The Empress cannot create in an environment where she is constantly being depleted. She needs space, she needs resources, she needs to feel safe and supported. And by removing yourself from that dynamic that was taking from you without giving back, you essentially created the conditions for the Empress energy to activate in your life. The Empress is also showing me something about your relationship with receiving. For a lot of Virgos, there is this tendency to be the person who is always helping, always supporting, always fixing things for other people. And the Empress is here to remind you that you are allowed to be the one who receives. You are allowed to be supported. You are allowed to have things come to you easily. You do not have to earn abundance through suffering or through sacrificing yourself. So practically speaking, this card is telling me to pay attention to opportunities that feel nourishing, that feel generative, that feel like they are adding to your life rather than asking you to prove yourself or to give more than you have. The Empress wants you to move toward what feels rich, what feels abundant, what feels like it is celebrating you rather than tolerating you. And when you do that, when you orient yourself toward that kind of energy, you are going to notice that resources start flowing to you in ways that feel almost magical. Okay, the third card, and I have to tell you, when I flipped this one, I actually said out loud, "Are you serious?" Because the card I got is the Eight of Swords. And this is the card that shows me what energy you just got free from. The Eight of Swords traditionally depicts a figure who is bound and blindfolded, surrounded by swords, looking totally trapped. But here's the thing about this card that most people miss. The bindings are loose. The person could free themselves if they realized they had the power to do so. And in your reading, Virgo, the Eight of Swords is showing me that you were in a situation where you were made to feel trapped, where you were made to feel like you did not have options, where you were made to feel like you had to stay and tolerate things that were not okay. But it was never actually true. The limitations were not real. They were psychological. They were imposed through manipulation, through gaslighting, through other people controlling the narrative and making you doubt your own perception. What the Eight of Swords is revealing is that you were dealing with some form of mental imprisonment. Maybe it was a relationship where someone was constantly telling you that you were too sensitive or too demanding or too much. Maybe it was a work situation where you were made to feel like you could not leave because you would not find anything better. Maybe it was a family dynamic where you were assigned a role and any attempt to step outside of that role was met with guilt trips and emotional manipulation. The energy of the Eight of Swords is very much about being trapped in your own mind by other people's opinions, by other people's versions of reality, by other people's fears that they projected onto you. And what happened recently is that you saw through it. You had a moment of clarity where you realized that the prison was not real. You realized that you could just take the blindfold off and walk away. And that is exactly what you did. Now, here is why this card is so important in the context of you being the villain in someone else's story. The people who were benefiting from you being trapped, the people who needed you to stay small and confused and compliant, they are the ones who are upset right now, because your liberation exposed the fact that they were the ones creating the cage. Your freedom revealed their manipulation, and instead of taking responsibility for that, they are trying to make you the bad guy for leaving. The Eight of Swords in this position is also showing me that there was probably a whole group dynamic involved here. This was not just one person. This was a system, maybe even what you could call a cult-like mentality, where everyone was invested in maintaining a certain story or a certain hierarchy. And you were playing a specific role in that system. Maybe you were the scapegoat. Maybe you were the person who was always wrong. Maybe you were the one who was supposed to fix everything while never getting credit for it. And when you extracted yourself from that role, when you refused to be the Eight of Swords figure anymore, the entire system destabilized. Because these kinds of dysfunctional groups need someone to project onto. They need someone to be the problem so that they do not have to look at their own issues. And by refusing to be that person anymore, by taking your power back and walking away, you essentially held up a mirror to the whole group and forced them to see what they were doing. So if you are dealing with backlash right now, if people are trying to make you feel guilty or trying to convince you that you made a mistake, the Eight of Swords is here to remind you of what you left behind. You left behind confusion. You left behind self-doubt. You left behind a situation where your reality was constantly being questioned and undermined. And no amount of money or connection or familiarity is worth staying in that kind of environment. All right, card number 4, and this one is the Lovers. And okay, so this threw me for a second because the Lovers can obviously be about romantic relationships, but in your reading, it is showing up as something much bigger than that. The Lovers is about alignment. It is about making a choice that reflects your true values. It is about the moment when you decide what you are going to be loyal to, what you are going to commit to, what you are going to build your life around. And in the context of everything we have talked about so far, the Lovers is showing me that you made a choice to be loyal to yourself. You chose your own peace over other people's comfort. You chose your own truth over other people's narratives. You chose your own future over a past that was never going to evolve. And that choice, that fundamental decision to align with your own soul rather than with external expectations, that is what activated all of this transformation. The Lovers is also a card about consequences. Every choice has a ripple effect. And the choice you made to honor yourself, to walk away from what was not serving you, that choice has set a whole new timeline into motion. You are not on the path you were on before. You are on a completely different trajectory now. And the people who were invested in the old path, the people who needed you to stay where you were, they are experiencing the consequences of your choice, and they do not like it. But here's what the Lovers wants you to understand. The right choice is not always the comfortable choice. The right choice does not always make everyone happy. The right choice sometimes looks like betrayal to people who were benefiting from your self-betrayal. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be willing to be the villain in a story that was never true to begin with. The Lovers is also showing me that this choice you made is opening you up to new connections, new partnerships, new relationships that are based on actual mutual respect and reciprocity. Because when you are no longer tolerating dynamics where you are undervalued or manipulated, you become available for dynamics where you are seen and appreciated and celebrated. The universe cannot bring you the right people while you are still attached to the wrong ones. So by making this choice, by choosing yourself, you have essentially made space for your actual tribe to find you. And I am getting a strong message with the Lovers that this new chapter is going to include relationships and collaborations that feel completely different from what you have experienced before. These are going to be connections where you do not have to explain yourself, where you do not have to prove your worth, where you do not have to manage anyone else's insecurity. These are going to be relationships where there is a natural harmony, a natural understanding, a natural flow of give and take. The Lovers in this position is also confirming that you made the right choice even if it does not feel easy right now. Even if you are dealing with guilt or doubt or people trying to pull you back into the old dynamic, this card is here to say that your soul knows you did the right thing. Your higher self is celebrating this choice. And as you continue to move forward, and as you continue to honor this alignment with yourself, you are going to see more and more evidence that you were absolutely correct to trust your instincts. Okay, card number 5 is the Knight of Pentacles, and this card is showing me the energy that is coming in for you financially and materially. The Knight of Pentacles is steady, reliable, methodical. He is not flashy, he is not rushing, but he gets results. And in your reading, this card is telling me that you are entering a phase where you are going to see consistent, tangible progress in your material reality. Now, here is why the Knight of Pentacles is so significant after everything else we have talked about. When you were stuck in that Eight of Swords energy, when you were trapped in that dysfunctional dynamic, your material progress was probably blocked. You were probably putting in a ton of effort, but not seeing the results you deserved. You were probably working hard, but your resources were being drained or redirected, or you were not being compensated fairly for what you were contributing. The Knight of Pentacles is showing up to say that blockage is cleared now. Now that you have removed yourself from that energy drain, now that you have reclaimed your power and your clarity, you are positioned to actually build something sustainable. And the Knight of Pentacles is very much about building wealth and security through consistent practical action. This is not get-rich-quick energy. This is not lottery win energy. This is showing me that you are going to be putting in the work and you are going to see direct results from that work. What I love about the Knight of Pentacles in your reading is that he represents a complete shift in how you are approaching your resources. You are not giving your energy away anymore. You are not overextending yourself for people who do not appreciate it. You are being much more strategic and discerning about where you invest your time, your skills, your attention. And that shift in approach is what is going to lead to the doubling that the theme of this reading is talking about. The Knight of Pentacles is also showing me multiple income streams or multiple projects that are all moving forward at the same time. So you might be working on something related to your main career or job, but you also have a side project or a creative endeavor or an investment that is also generating returns. And all of these things together are creating a foundation of security that you have not had before. I am also getting with the Knight of Pentacles that this is about you valuing yourself differently. You are charging what you are worth. You are not accepting less than you deserve. You are not staying in situations where you are undervalued. And that shift in how you value yourself is directly impacting how much you are able to receive. Because the universe cannot pay you more than you believe you are worth. And now that you have walked away from people who were undervaluing you, you have essentially reset your energetic price point. The Knight of Pentacles is very practical energy. So I want to give you some tangible guidance here. This card is asking you to stay focused on your long-term goals, even when progress feels slow. Trust the process. Keep showing up. Keep doing the work. Do not get distracted by what other people are doing or by opportunities that look flashy but do not have substance. The Knight of Pentacles wants you to build something real, something that lasts, something that gives you actual security and freedom. And here's the beautiful thing about this card in relation to you being the villain. The people who are mad at you for leaving, the people who are trying to paint you as the bad guy, they are going to watch you thrive. They are going to see you building a life that is so much better than what you had when you were stuck in their drama. And that success, that visible, tangible progress, that is going to be the ultimate validation that you made the right choice. Okay, final card, and this one is Death. And I know that card freaks people out, but please do not panic, because in tarot, death is actually one of the most powerful and liberating cards you can get. Death is about transformation. It is about the end of a cycle. It is about shedding an old identity so that a new one can emerge. And in your reading, Virgo, death is confirming that you are in the middle of a massive metamorphosis. Everything we have talked about with the other cards, the Seven of Swords extraction, the Eight of Swords liberation, the Lover's choice, all of that has been leading to this death card moment. You are not the same person you were before all of this happened. You cannot go back to who you were. That version of you is gone. And the death card is here to say that is exactly as it should be. What death represents in your situation is the complete dismantling of an old way of being. You are killing off the parts of yourself that were conditioned to please other people, that were trained to doubt your own perception, that were taught to make yourself small so that others could feel big. You are ending your participation in dynamics that require you to betray yourself. You are closing the door on chapters that were never going to have a happy ending. And yes, that makes you the villain to people who liked the old version of you better. That makes you the villain to people who benefited from you not knowing your worth. That makes you the villain to people who needed you to stay stuck so that they could feel superior. But death does not care about any of that. Death is ruthless in its commitment to evolution. And you are being asked to be equally ruthless in your commitment to your own transformation. The death card is also showing me that this ending needed to happen for you to access the next level of your life. There are blessings, opportunities, relationships, and experiences waiting for you that you could never access while you were still attached to that old reality. The new cannot come in while you are still holding on to the old. And by allowing this death, by allowing this ending, by grieving what was and accepting that it is over, you are making space for something so much better. Now, in terms of the doubling energy, death is actually confirming this, because death always leads to rebirth. And what is being reborn in you is going to be twice as powerful, twice as clear, twice as abundant as what came before. You are not just recovering from this situation. You are being completely remade. You are being upgraded. You are being initiated into a version of yourself that knows her worth, that trusts her intuition, that will not tolerate anything less than what she deserves. The death card is also giving me a message about legacy. What you are doing right now by choosing yourself, by walking away from toxicity, by refusing to play small, that is creating a new legacy. You are breaking patterns that maybe have been in your family for generations. You are showing other people that it is possible to choose yourself even when it is hard. You are becoming an example of what it looks like to value your own peace over other people's approval. So if you have been feeling scared about this transformation, if you have been worried that you made a mistake, if you have been tempted to go back to what was familiar even though it was painful, the death card is here to tell you, do not go back. Keep moving forward. Trust the death. Trust the ending. Trust that you are being guided into something so much better than you can even imagine right now. All right, Virgo, so let me bring this all together for you. You dismantled a cult, maybe not a literal cult, but definitely a toxic system that was invested in keeping you small and confused. You extracted yourself strategically. You freed yourself from mental imprisonment. You chose to align with your own truth, and now you are building something real and sustainable while going through a complete transformation. The villain narrative is temporary. Let them tell their story. You know the truth. And more importantly, the universe knows the truth, and you are about to see the rewards of choosing yourself. The doubling is real. Your abundance is coming. Your new life is already forming. Keep going.